Shalom Aleichem. So we're preparing Be'ez Hashem Yisborach for Rosh Hashana. Very different than the preparations of every year, but the Ruchnistic preparation is the same. So it's like this. There's an interesting minig, that the Chazan of Shachris, begins. He says Hamelech by his seat. And only afterwards he walks up to the Yomid. So Yeshua Yor, you know where that comes from? It does require research. I'm not good at research, but I just want to suggest, why is that? It may be because, when we talk about Tamlichuni Aleichem, sometimes people think that they need to be in a better place in order to be Mamlech HaKadosh Baruch Hu. They need to be in the right place in order to be Mamlech HaKadosh Baruch Hu. They feel inadequate. They feel unworthy. But the truth of the matter is that Tamlichuni Aleichem is where you're at. That's where you have to be Mekabel El Malchus Shamayim. You have to be ready to move. And that's why immediately after the Hamelech, the Chazan moves forward. But you can't wait to be there in order to begin. Because if you wait to be there in order to begin, it'll never begin. Right, so that's the message of starting the Hamelech before we even move out of our place. Actually, the whole seder of the Moyadim, that Rosh Hashana comes before Yom Kippur, is kind of awkward because l'chayra, first we should do tshuva and then we should have the Tamlichuni Aleichem, but the pshat is fakir. The pshat is that in order to do tshuva, in order to be able to get into the negotiation with the Rebbeinu Shalom, we have to have a relationship. The first thing is Tamlichuni Aleichem. We take him upon ourselves as Avinu Malkeinu. And then, we have a Pischem Peh. To talk to him. Then there's room for Kerachim of Albonim. Then there's room for im kibonim, im ka'avodim. But if you are an outsider, so it doesn't even begin. And therefore, the first thing is Tamlichuni Aleichem, no matter where you are. Now, the Yerushalmi says in the first parak in Shabbos that Reb Chia mafkid l'Rav. Reb Chia would command Rav. He said to Rav, if you can manage to eat all year chulin betahara, the Gemara says in Chagiga that even though, Avada Hilches Tumah are only relevant in Kodshim or in Truma, but there's no problem with eating chulin tmeim, but nevertheless it's a minik chasidus to eat chulin betara. So Reb Chia said to Rav that if you can manage to eat all year chulin betara echol, and if you can't, then the Eloi echol shiva yomim b'shata. 7 days of the year you should eat chulin betara. What are those 7 days? The Rosh at the end of Rosh Hashana brings in the name of the Rav Yo that these 7 days are the days between Rosh Hashana and Yom Kippur. Because Yom Kippur we don't eat, and Rosh Hashana he says it wasn't necessary to say it because Chayev Adam L'Tar Atzmei Beregel. So he anyway ate chulin betara on Rosh Hashana, and therefore he only spoke about the 7 days. Now, the Torah says that in the name of the Rav Yo, that for that reason there's a minig in Ashkenaz that even those that eat pas palter, that eat bread from a Goyish bakery, nevertheless, during the Aseret Yimei Tshuva, they refrain from doing so. So the Beis Yosef brings from the Tshuvas Tashbats in the name of Reb Shmuel mi Bunburg that he says that argues with the Rav Yo. He says that Bishloime, when it comes to chulin betahara, where there's no halachic issue involved, so fine, you could do it for those 7 days and then go back to your normal behavior. But he says in pas palter, is a chumre me'ikar adin. And therefore, if one will refrain during the Aseres Yemei Tshuva from eating pas palter, it will become a neder. And he won't be able to go back to eating pas palter afterwards. Says the Beis Yosef that I don't see this as a problem because Avada, since it's bedaitoi, l'chatchila, that he's only going to refrain from eating pas palter during the Aseres Yemei Tshuva, so there's no chash of a neder. So it's interesting that what qualifies this minig is the fact that we know that he knows that this is just for now, and he's going to go back to his old ways after the Aseres Yemei Tshuva. So I ask you, what's the idea? I mean, are we trying to fool the Rebbeinu Shalom? I mean, I know that I'm doing this only for a limited amount of time. So what's being accomplished by refraining from eating pas palter during the Aseres Yemei Tshuva? So it would be a talking because the Gemara says in the first parak in Rosh Hashana, "V'amar Reb Yitzchak ein donin es ha'adam ela lefi ma'asav ba'oiso shah." A person is only judged according to his ma'asim at the moment of his din. Shenemar ki shama Elokim el kol hanar ba'asher hu sham. Hashem, listen to the prayer of Yishmael. Ba'asher hu sham. Rashi says, Shel oiso shova afilu hu osid laharshia achakach. As we know, Yishmael was osid laharshia achakach. So even if he's osid laharshia achakach, Hashem judges a person lefi ma'asav b'oiso shah. The Rabbeinu Hananel brings in the name of the Yerushalmi a different drasha that it says, Zach v'yoshar ato. Zach v'yoshar hoyiso ein ksiv kan, elo zach v'yoshar ato. Now you are zach v'yoshar. She'ein donin es ha'adam elo lefi ma'asav b'oiso shah. So we see that both with regards to the past and with regards to the future, oiso shah is what determines, not the past, not the future. Obviously, we're talking about somebody that didn't do tshuva, because if he did tshuva, then the past is erased. It's not a chiddush of ma'asav sheba oiso shah. He doesn't anymore have the ma'asim of the past. So we're talking about somebody whose spiritual state is not one of tshuva. Nevertheless, oiso shah, he's a zach v'yosher, and that allows him for a din l'toiva. And even if he's osid laharshia achakach. No, so we understand that if a person is on a higher level during the Aseres Yemei Tshuva, I mean, he's nidin al pi ma'asav sheba oiso shah. And therefore, I mean, there's something to this minig, but obviously it's very difficult to understand the logic behind this. Why would it be that a person is nidin b'samaisav shel oiso shah, regardless of his past, regardless of his future? You know, we say hayoim haras oilam, hayoim yamid b'mishpat kol yitzurei oilamim. The Mashmoah says that because it's haras oilam, therefore hayoim yamid b'mishpat kol yitzurei oilamim. What's haras oilam? The Abu Draham says that haras is a lotion of hiroyon, of pregnancy, like the pasuk v'rachamo haras oilam, a pasuk in Yirmiyah. So why would we I mean, l'chayra, Rosh Hashana is the day of the world's birth. Why would we talk about Rosh Hashana as haras oilam? But you know that Tosfos in Rosh Hashana asks theories, because the Gemara says, "Keman matzlinan ha'idne zeh hayoim tchilas ma'asecha." According to which shita do we say that today is the beginning of your ma'asim? Rabbi Eliezer that says that be Tishrei nivra ha'olam, because according to Rabbi Shua, be Nisan nivra ha'olam. But Tosfos asks theories that in other places we see that we follow the opinion of Rabbi Shua, that be Nisan nivra ha'olam. And Tosfos says that Elu ve'elu divrei Elokim chayim. One is referring to the Olah b'machshava, and the other is referring to the actual practical creation. So, in Tosfos is really not clear which one is what, but most achronim assume that Nisan is the time of Olah b'machshava, and that the Tishrei is the time of Olah b'machshava, and Nisan is the time of the actual creation. So if Tishrei is the time of Olam b'machshava, so it is appropriate to use the term haras olam, because it was conceived in machshava in Tishrei. It wasn't actually that the world was born in Tishrei. It was haras olam. And according to this, we could understand why this is the reason for Hayom Yamid B'Mishpat Kol Yitzurei Elamim, because we know what Rashi says in Parshas Bereshis, that during Brias Olam, the Torah uses the term Elokim, Bereshis Bar Elokim, Vayomer Elokim, Vayomer Elokim. And only in the end it says, B'yoim Asois Hashem Elokim. Rashi says, B'tchila Olam B'machshava Livrias Olam B'midas Adin, Rosh Hashana Olam Miskayim b'midas adin, omad v'shiteif midas adin b'midas harachamim, midas harachamim b'midas adin. So kum tochois that the olah b'machshava is midas adin, and therefore the day of haras olam, the day of olah b'machshava, is the time for hayoim yamid b'mishpat. It's the time of din. The emes it's mefurish like that in the Goyen, in Yohel Or, in the Likutim. In Parsha Shemois, he says, "Hode pligi Rebbe Lezer Rebbe Yeshua in Benissen Nivra Olam v'chulei Pirshu HaKatmoinim Shamachshava b'Tishrei v'Amaisa Benissen v'Inyin K'moi Sha'amru Sherotz HaKadosh Baruch Hu Yisbarach Levoroi b'Midas Hadin v'Rosh Ein Miskayim Shitif Midas Harachmim v'Lachein Huskan Rosh Hashana L'Din." So the Yesod of Rosh Hashana being the Yom Hadin is because it's the day of Olam Machshava Livriyas Olam b'Midas Hadin. Now, obviously, we have a difficult time understanding what it means that B'tchil Olam Machshava Livriyas Olam b'Midas Hadin Rosh Ein Olam Miskayim. I mean, Avada the Rebbeinu Shalom is not shaykh to a change of mind, a change of heart. I mean, Avada, he knows everything. What does it mean? B'tchil Olam Machshava Livriyas Olam b'Midas Hadin. This is the interesting Tzfas Emes in Parshas Bereshis that writes, it can't be that the Rebbeinu Shalom had a chazorah. Rak shebevadai kach tzorich liyos gam lemato. Ki ritzoyno odam umachshavto tzorich liyos lasoy tzolakayim hakoil mamash kedinu kirotz nabora. Anyway, he says our machshava parallels his machshava, and our olam miskayim parallels his olam miskayim. Meaning that a person's aspirations, a person's striving, a person's rotzen is really nidden b'midas adin. A person's olah b'machshava, what he wants to be, that's nidden b'midas adin. Because, as they say, ein lecha davar ha'omed b'fnei ha'rotzen. I mean, many things stand between me and accomplishing my rotzen, but nothing stands between me and wanting. I mean, I could want. So the pshat is that in terms of what I want, I'm nidden b'midas adin. In terms of carrying it out, in terms of olam miskayim, over there's a shituf of midas rachamim with midas hadin, because not everything can actually be carried out. So if Rosh Hashana is the day of haras olam, the day that the world was conceived b'machshava, and therefore it's the Yom Adin, so it's a Yom Adin on the Olah b'machshava, on our Olah b'machshava, on what we want, who we want to be. And therefore I think that refraining from eating pas palter or any other special anhagis that we noyeg during the Aseret Simei Tshuva are an expression of what we want to be. Even if we're aware that there's some things that we can't actually carry out on a daily basis, but nevertheless it expresses who I really want to be, and therefore it's an expression of where my olah b'machshava is, and that's the idea of Ba'asher Hu Sham, because the Ba'asher Hu Sham, if at this moment I'm on a madrege, even if it wasn't the Zach v'Yosher Hayisa, and even if I'm Osid Laharshia, but if now I'm on a higher madrege, the pshat is that that's the real me. That's who I want to be. You know that the Torah in Arachaim, in Hilchas Tefillah, Simon Tzadik Beis, says that a nitzrach l'nekovov is not allowed to daven because it says, Hikoin l'kraso l'kecho Yisrael. And he says, Ve'im hispalel, tfilosoi toyevo. V'tzorech lachzor l'hispalel, the tefillah is possible. V'hani mili she'ena yochoi lamed elatzma shir hiluch parsa. That's only if you can't hold back from going to the bathroom for a shir hiluch parsa. Aval yochoi lamed elatzma, then tfilosoi tefillah. So what's the shir? Where did we pick up the shir of hiluch parsa? That if you can't wait a shir hiluch parsa, the tefillah is a toyeva. But if you could wait a shir hiluch parsa, the tefillah is not a toyeva. So the Bach says, "Umashe kosav shir hiluch parsa matzosi kosuv." That this shir is based on the fact that the Gemara says in Brachos that Chasidim are Rishonim, hoyu shoyin shoachas lifnei atfilah, and a shoachas the tefillah listed, and a shoachas after the tefillah. And the Rabbeinu Yonis says that show over here means a 60-minute hour. He proves it because the Gemara says, it comes out that the 9 hours of the day are taken, so when did they learn, when did they work? So the Bach says that the shir of an hour is be'erech the shir of Hiluch Parsa, and that's what he found, Matzosi Kosuv, that they explain, that the shir Hiluch Parsa is because that's how long it takes to daven, because Chasidim Rishonim, they daven for an hour. So I ask you, the Chasidim Rishonim daven for an hour. That's very nice. But I never daven for an hour. L'chorah, the shir should be based on the average, not the average in the Zman HaMikdash or in the Zman HaGemara, but the average today. Even then, it wasn't the average because it was only the Hasidim Harishonim they did it. So, what logic is there that we should say that the principle is that if I can't finish my davening without going to the bathroom, my tefillah is a tayeva. And what we say, what is it considered that I can't finish? If I can't wait for an hour, because the shir of tefillah is an hour, because the Chassidim Rishonim daven for an hour. So this might express the idea that even if I never daven for an hour, but a yid, when he begins to daven, he has to have the potential to daven the tefillah of the Chassidim Rishonim. If he's not capable of davening the tefillah of the Chassidim Rishonim, his tefillah is a tayeva. So in other words, it's not. It's the olam miskayim, the way the world practically is miskayim. Over there's a shituf of midas harachamim. But in my wanting, when I begin davening, I have to have the potential and I have to have the want and the wish that I daven like Chasidim Rishonim. You know that it's famous, the Ramah in Yerideisim and Pei that says that milk of a Goyish woman is you're she's allowed to breastfeed a Jewish child, but nevertheless you shouldn't do so if you can have milk from a Jewish mother, because cholov akum metamte malevu moilid loy tevara, and the Bir Agro says that the source is the Medrash that says about Moshe Rabbeinu, Pesha Asa L'Daber Mashchina. He didn't want to be yoinek from Isha Mitzris. So the Welt asks, Pesha Asa L'Daber Mashchina. No, but since it's been a long time since we had any Nevi'im. Allah has kama v'chama, a Navi on the Madrega of Moshe Rabbeinu, Asa L'Daber Mashchina. So why would we make this a halacha for every Jewish child? So they say, I think Rabbi Yaakov Kamenetsky said this, that you see that every Jewish child has to be raised with the potential of being a Moshe Rabbeinu. Once again, even though we haven't seen a Moshe Rabbeinu for a very long time, but our Olam Machshava should not be affected by the Olam HaMiskayim. The Olam Machshava has to be all the way up there. You know that the Mesilas Yesharim begins with the words Yesoid HaChasidus v'shoresh ha'avoda ha'tmima hu she'yizbarer v'yisametz eitzel ha'odom ma choivosoi ba'olamoi. What is his obligation? Ulema tzorich sheyosim mabotoi umagomosoi b'chol asher hu omel kol yemei chayev. What should he be striving for? L'chorah, he should be striving for being mekayim choivosoi ba'olamoi. Means hainu hach. He seems to be saying there's two things. So I want to suggest, because the Sefer Mesilas Yesharim is based on the Sulam, on the ladder of Rav Pinchas ben Yair. The last three things are, Yiras Chet Mevil Lidei Kedusha. Kedusha Mevil Lidei Ruach HaKodesh. Ruach HaKodesh Mevil Lidei Tchias HaMesim. Now the Ramchal in Perek Chavav already says that Inyan HaKedusha Kafulhu. The Hainu, Tchilosoi Avoide V'Soifoi Gmul. Kedusha, the beginning is Avoide, but the end is reward. Tchilosoi Ishtadlus, V'Soifoi Matana. V'hainu shetchilosei mashu adam mekadesh atzmoi, v'soifoi mashu mekadshei moisei, v'u mashu amru zichronim levrocha adam mekadesh atzmoi ma'at, mekadshei moisei harbe, milamata mekadshei moisei milmayla. So you see that the higher level of kedusha is something that one cannot acquire. It's a gift. It's a gift. So we can't say that acquiring the higher level of kedusha is part of choivosoi ba'olamai. But nevertheless, it's part of the lamat tzorich sheyosim mabotoi umagamosoi. That's what you should be hoping for and striving for and wanting. And avada, that's true about the next two madregas, which is ruach hakodesh and tchias hamesim. That's completely matone. So it's not part of the choivosei ba'olamai, but it's part of the lamat tzorich sheyosim mabotoi umagamosoi. So mamela, it comes out that when during the Rosh Hashana and the Aseret Tshuva, this man of Olav Machshava Livrius Olam Midas Adin. So we should first of all tap into our real self and Be'emes want what's right, want to be the right thing. Now Avada, we need to hope that certain things, we need to also make practical resolutions and practical Kabbalahs that will actually be long-lasting. Avada, that's what Tshuva is all about. But at the same time, we have to know that it's not only that. There's also the dimension of Ba'asher Husham. And we shouldn't be afraid to be in a place that we can't be all year round, and we should recognize the greatness of who we really are and what we want to be, and that some at certain special moments we could actually tap into that and bring out our Ola b'machshava, which is judged b'midas hadin, and tell the Rebbeinu Shalom, Anu avodecha va'atam alkeinu. And not feel like we are not capable of Tamlichuni Aleichem. We are capable of Tamlichuni Aleichem. The Rebbeinu Shalom, obviously, we not only commemorate the day of man's creation, but we also celebrate the day of man's creation, as the halacha is that Rosh Hashana, according to most poskim, is chayiv b'simcha. The Rambam says that there's no simcha yisera on Rosh Hashana, but you see that it's a day of simcha. And according to most poskim, you're mechuyev to eat. And the Rambam, the Medayik and the Rambam, in Hilchos Yom Tov, that he says that the 7 days of Pesach and the 8 days of Sukkot are Yemei Simcha. And he says, V'shar Yomim Tovim. Now, besides for the Pesach and Sukkot, we only have Shavuos. So obviously it includes Rosh Hashana, which is the Shar Yomim Tovim. So Rosh Hashana is a day of Simcha. Why are we celebrating man's creation? Man is Noach lo shaloi nivra mishanivra. Noach lo shaloi nivra mishanivra. But we obviously are saying it's not all about comfort. Adarabba, in order to accomplish something, you have to get out of your comfort zone. So life really begins out of our comfort zone, because Noach lo shaloi nivra mishanivra. So it's about accomplishing something, and we embrace the responsibility. And we celebrate it. And it's also the Rebbeinu Shalom's vote of confidence in us, because the Malachi Ashura said, Mo enoish kisis kerenu, ben avim kisif kedenu. But the Rebbeinu Shalom nevertheless created us. And that's a vote of confidence, and we should celebrate that. And we should make ourselves more and more worthy of that. Okay, Rabbi Sai, I wish you all aksive v'chasime toive, a good gebencht yor, and we should be zeiche, to make a move in the right direction. Okay.